Welcome, Marta, to Love and Beloved Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Lena. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that we finally talking because that was a joke, honestly, guys. And I just said to Marta, I'm getting so excited. I'm having goosebumps because I know exactly when lots of things happening for us not to meet, and it's been hurtful since we decided to record this episode. And it was bizarre thing with the schedule and with the emails and all this stuff. I know deep down it's gonna be amazing and it's gonna bring so much value. And getting ready for this podcast and reading through your bio, and I'm just was so blown away of who you are, and I really want to introduce you to my audience. So please, without further ado, tell us, Marta, about yourself and where your journey begins.
Yes. My name is Martha Kartaoui, and my journey begins. I was born into a religious cult. So we're going all the way back to my birth. Of course, when I was born, didn't know it was a cult. Growing up, mostly, I never had even heard the word cult, so didn't associate that until I actually escaped at age 25. But between birth and 25, I spent a lot of time in trauma, physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, spiritual trauma. Those were just the episodes that really just inundated my existence. And so um, the the journey afterwards is these last 19 years, which we'll get to, but that's where my journey starts.
And that's why I love you to be here, because I do believe after this conversation, what I would like people to understand, everybody's suffering, everybody has trauma, and everybody can overcome and thrive. But another thing that I want them to know, that the church and the cult, it's not God. I want them to know, on your experience and in your um through your story, to see that it's completely two different things. And the fact that sometimes people give up on God because have a bad experiences in the church, and it's very sad. And
Yeah.
I don't want to shy um away from those topics, because they say like, oh yes, church has to be elevated, but with the same sinners, with the same problems, just like outside of the church, except then we have relationship with God. That's all. And I think sometimes people judge the church and judge the God by the behavior of people.
That is such a beautiful and important delineation, right, between the God and the church and the God and the cult, right? Like we grew up hearing about God, but none of my experience of God, of the God that I know and serve now, is of what I learned in the cult, right? The God that I heard about in the cult was angry, was we had to pay for all of our sins, was the mad God, right? Was the visiting the iniquities of, that's the stuff that we heard. All of the, hell, brimstone, and fire was the God of cult. I never heard of the love of God, the mercy, the grace. I never heard of those things in the cult. So thank you for making that delineation, because so often, and I find this from survivors of my own cult, is that they turn against God. They turn away from God. And for me, God has been so much my strength, and has been so much my has helped me to navigate this healing journey, that I can't imagine doing it without that, right? Like that, and to me is sad that the experiences that we had took them away from God, right? So thank you for making that distinction.
Absolutely. And another thing that actually, before asking you any question, can you dive a little bit deeper without give us um what the word I'm looking for. Um, Tell us a little bit more about your story, what you can say comfortably, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, I was born into the cult at age 12. Well, for my whole life leading up to age 12, we went to the compound every weekend, right? We spent Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the compound. The compound was 4.5 hours away from our home, so we commuted every Friday to the compound, and then on Sunday night, right before we would get home in time to go to work on Mondays. So our whole existence was controlled and was manipulated by the cult and by the leader. The leader was intertwined in all aspects of our life. I'm named by the leader. All of my brothers and sisters are named by the leader. We sought his counsel for anything medical, anything professional, anything for, he was intertwined in all aspects of our life. If we were going to buy a car, buy a house, any of those things had to be run through him. So what that created is this egomaniac, right? This person who had so much power over this select group of people, and we all had no identity. We all had no decision making abilities, because we went to him for everything. And that's how I grew up. I knew nothing else. I knew that if I asked my parents something, my parents would have to ask him. If that was to play in a sport, or if that was to play in the band, or whatever it is, my parents couldn't make that decision. He made that decision for us, and my parents would have to ask them. So very early on, I realized I didn't have an alibi. I didn't have an advocate. I didn't have somebody that I could confide in. So when my very earliest sexual molestation experiences started at age 9, I had no one to go to. I was completely alone. I didn't know, I couldn't trust my parents not to tell him. And I knew I was scared of the repercussions if it got to cult man. So, that's just an example of how isolated we were in our own group, right? And he put himself in such a position that everything went to and through him. And that's very alienating for a family unit. So I have 9 brothers and sisters, but we didn't have a normal functioning relationship. We have parents, but we didn't know what it meant to be a family, because everything went through him and revolved around him and revolved around the cult, right? So I know that's it's a lot of information all at one time, but that's a little bit about my experience.
No, obviously, that's what I want you to do. I want you to give us those details because honestly, I think sometimes we live with this little bubble and sometimes we see something on TV or read in the book, and it's almost unbelievable that it's actually happening to real people. Like I have goosebumps thinking like sounds like fiction, but it's the same thing like when I'm sharing my story. People coming to me after I'm um presentation and or reading my book, especially people that I know, and they say, "This is really happened to you,"
Yeah.
because they see what we are projecting right now. We already survive, overcome, and thriving, so they see what we show them. So until you tell someone, nobody know anything about you.
Yeah.
And by telling people more and more, it's create awareness. Not only
Right.
it shows that you are amazing human being, which is like just wow that you on another side and you sharing this story. It's huge because one day it's gonna help someone because somebody think, oh wow, it sounds like a fiction, and somebody think, oh wow, this is happening to me.
Right.
So I hope this podcast somehow find those
Yeah.
people who would look into it.
Right. And Lena, that is exactly the reason why I tell my story. Because I tell my story because there is someone else that's not going to feel alone because they resonate with something that I've said, or an experience that I've had, or the loneliness that I felt, right? And so my story is so much more than, molestation and rape and physical abuse and starvation and mental and emotional and spiritual abuse. It's so much more than that, right? Those are all things that happened to me that somebody may resonate with, right? But they were all tactics to control me. They were all tactics to keep me in fear. They were all tactics to keep me submissive to this person
Well,
that controlled our lives. And so that doesn't have to be a cult leader, right? That can be a spouse, that can be a parent, that can be a coach, that can be so many. It doesn't, so that's why I tell my story, is because you don't have to be from a cult to resonate with the things that I've been through and the things that I've had to heal from. And it's been a long and arduous 19 years of a healing process that I'm still in and will continue to be in forever, right? Because there's never a final destination when it comes to healing. And so I share because somebody else may not feel alone. Somebody else may resonate with, wow, I see myself in her. So
absolutely. What I wanted to add, it's like creating a slave. And sometimes it's using the emotional or physical need means, or actually like created like prison like system, and generation from generation you do the same thing, so you kind of not even questioning. That's what I want to ask you. How did you start questioning and get out?
So that's funny that you ask, because when you're born into it, you don't know there's something different outside. You don't know, and you don't know to question, right? Like I went to public school, so I had friends, but I always had friends on the periphery, right? Like nobody knew what we did on the weekends. Nobody really knew me because I kept a wall up. I kept a wall separate from my pain, from my trauma, and we were so programmed that you didn't talk about anything that went in the group, right? You didn't talk about what went on the weekends. You didn't talk about why we weren't allowed to wear pants or shorts or cut our hair, or wear makeup or earrings or whatever. We didn't talk about those things. And if we were questioned, we lied. So I always had this barrier up that nobody could get too close to me, to protect myself always, right? And so when you realize that that's not serving you anymore, um, I didn't get to that point until well after I escaped. The reason I escaped was because, more selfishly, I had found out that my sister, a sister that had been out of the cult for years, was pregnant. And I didn't want her to have her first child without me, because her and I are only 18 months apart and we grew up as close as siblings could be. And I didn't want her to have to bring her first baby into the world and not know me, because I'm her older sister and I wanted to be part of that process for her, because I knew she didn't have her parents because her parents were still in the cult. So I selfishly wanted to be there for her, and I wanted to be auntie, and I wanted to have that role. So the questioning came long after I escaped, right? And that all started to transpire once you start realizing that you have to figure out who you are. I had no identity. I had no self-confidence. I had no self-awareness. I was entering this world of just mass, like, what? Right? And you have to fit in, you have to assimilate, you have to acclimate. And that's when I started questioning, is like, how am I so ill prepared for this when I've spent 25 years in what I thought was serving my highest good? I was a chosen people. That's what I was told. We were chosen people. So how am I so ill prepared for real life? So yeah, eventually the questioning started, and then the unraveling started.
Wow. Do you mind me ask how your sister escaped and how you escaped? Do they hunt you? Do they, I don't know, try to prosecute you or something? Like, How was, or they say, oh, you want to leave, you cut off from your parents and the family. How was that process?
Yeah. So I am the only one from my family that lived in the compound. And so I had to escape. I couldn't just call him and say, I'm not coming back now, just leave us alone, which my parents could do. When my parents made the decision to leave, they didn't live in the compound. They just basically called him and said, we're done. We're not coming back. Don't bug us. We're separating, and and he lets you be, but you are cut off from anybody that is still there, right? You're not allowed to have
Like
communication, even if
excommunicated and
you're
everything.
excommunicated, right? I have a sister that's still there, and we are not allowed to talk to her, of course, and she's it's been many, many, many years, and until she gets out or makes that decision for herself, we will not be allowed to have communication with her. But as far as me, I lived in the compound. And so I had to physically escape because every move I made was monitored. I was monitored when I went to work because I worked for one of the cult's businesses. I was monitored when I was at the compound because they fed me. Everything revolved around the compound and the cult. And so I had no independence to just be able to up and leave. So, and yes, I was hunted for weeks after I left. People would show up at my parents' house in North Carolina, which is a long ways away from where the cult was, because they were looking for me. They were trying to find me. And so, yes, I hid for almost 3 months, just waiting for them to stop looking for me. So yeah, it was a long time to stay, but I also knew that I could not afford to get caught. I had escaped one other time and got caught and brought back, and the repercussions were horrendous and just very, very, very painful. And so I didn't want to repeat that. And so I knew that I would do whatever I had to do to stay safe.
Well, you are a very brave woman. And that time you were a very young woman too. So I'm really grateful that you survive. I'm grateful that you're out, and I'm grateful that you're here. And another thing that I would like to point it out, because maybe it's really weird for people and strange, and kind of they don't understand this fact, because um I can relate when you said you wasn't prepared for the world, because my struggle started when I was like around 11, and around the same age, 25, I come out from human trafficking and try to live the normal life. And I realized I'm I have no idea how to live in a day. I have no idea how to live without drugs. I have no idea how to live with people. I have no idea how to speak at the table. I have no idea how to properly undress and do my makeup and everything to be actually normal. I do in quotation marks, guys, normal, whatever. But what I wanted to be, I had like this huge gap. And then I realized, oh, I'm close to 30 years old, but I feel like a teenager, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to learn how to do the laundry or sweep the floor. And sometimes I'm thinking it's so bizarre, but I'm grateful because now I see the value of all of these little things that I actually teach my children, and it's not just a joke, it's actually preparing them for life. And in the crazy bizarre way, it actually make me better parent, because I understand how valuable to know all those little things, how to fit in, how to have a conversation, so it's
Well, and how to be honest, because I spent so much of my life lying to protect my identity and to protect myself and my group, that I didn't know what it was like to be honest, to not have to or need the walls of protection that I had created, right, in order just to survive. And so becoming honest and being allowed to be honest without fear of repercussions was crazy, right? Like people don't understand that being honest was so difficult
scary.
because
Yeah.
yeah, and scary, right? And but it was also, once I understood its value, it was so liberating not to have to keep up with the lies, not to have to keep up the facade, not have to keep up with the multiple, Marthas. So yeah, it was liberating once I was able to really stand in that truth.
The coolest part, it's awesome that you're saying that, because I have a loss of identity too, because I didn't know who I was and I didn't know who I wanted to be. I was kind of stuck in the middle, and I have to think what is the future like, but actually what I wanted to be, not who I were before. But it was like huge gap, like I think years, when I actually struggled with imposter syndrome, because I was prostitute, alcoholic, drug addict, and now I was clean. I was building the business. I have a baby, a housewife, a husband, and I was like, whoa, I thought I'm gonna be dead by that time. And
Yeah,
now everything was new. I had no family, no friends, no language, no car. I didn't know law of the land. It was huge, yeah, learning experience, but the coolest part that, because I was by myself, I was choosing who I want to be, who I want to build, and my
yeah,
character and my persona. And for now, like you said, 19 years was 20 years for me when I didn't share my story, because I thought it's story of guilt and shame and condemnation. But now I know it's God's story of salvation, of thriving after trauma, overcoming adversity. And the craziest part, if somebody would say, Lena, I give you magic wand, you can remove all your past and create this beautiful life, I would get scared and say no, because that made me who I am now. And I love who I am now. And the struggle created, and the character and perseverance, and helping me now making decisions easier and faster. I have no word failure in my vocabulary. I say I win or I learn. And I realized this is because the hard time create the strong
yeah,
man. And
yeah,
I'm grateful, and I'm
yeah,
hopefully this podcast gonna show you guys that you can too, because we just regular people, regular
yeah,
girls that went through
exactly.
struggle, and we telling you, just don't give up, because
Yeah,
there's gonna be one day. And it's cool that you said about them healing, because my phrase, there's no due date on healing, so there's no due date. Okay, so
yeah,
where you are, it's can be that stepping stone for a better tomorrow. Just
yes,
today, think
yeah,
what you can do today.
yeah. That resonates with me on such a deep, deep level, because I've had people ask me, if you could wave the magic wand and never have been in the cult or never experienced those things, would you just take it away? And for me, that's such an interesting question, but it's also like you, ugh, because I really feel like everything that's happened to me in my life has prepared me for this moment, has prepared me to be able to help the people that I help, has been able to, for me to know the resources and to accumulate the resources and the tools that I've had to on my healing journey in order to help someone else. So if I didn't experience those things, I wouldn't have needed these tools. I wouldn't have needed this healing journey, right? And so you can't be where we are in this moment and serve in the way that we are serving if we didn't have those experiences. And so I feel the same way that you do. Like, no, I like who I am. Not only do I like who I am, I love who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I've come a long way, but now it's time for me to give back. It's time for me to serve others. And if I'm able to serve others through my story and through my testimony and through my passion to give back and to share, then I feel like this was all worthwhile.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And yes, somebody said, my mess creates my message, something like that. And I do believe that our stories give us and purpose and passion and compassion for people who struggling. So I like to ask you, Marta, um, let's talk a little bit about the life after trauma. Although again, quotation mark, after trauma, it's always gonna be a trauma, you know. But I'm talking about um right now, what are the healthy ways to cope with it?
So in this last 19 years, I've had to re-identify with self. What does that mean? And I know, Lena, you understand this on a level that that many might also, or some might not, right? We had no identity. We had to truly make choices to create who we are today. And our choices have created who we are and brought us to this exact moment. So there's so many different things that I have done and have participated in order to heal. And now I get to share those things. But there's always, it's always going to go back to the trauma is never gone. It just becomes part of the past and no longer defines my future. So that's where I'm currently at. And I'm currently now at the place where, as a certified life and health coach, I get to start giving back. I get to start helping others to identify self, to get in touch with their past, their trauma, their yuck, in order to heal it, because you have to feel it to heal it. Right? We talk about this a lot in trauma recovery, is that you can't just push it under the rug and hope that it just erodes and goes away. Eventually it will rear its head and you will have to face it. So in order to heal it, you have to feel it. And now that's the place that I'm in now, being able to help others navigate their own stuff, their own crisis, their own trauma, their own mess, their own yuck. So yeah.
That's awesome. I actually, when I read your podcast form, I even put it here. You must feel to heal. I think I'm gonna name this podcast this phrase. It's just spoke to me. But is there any practical tools or advice you can give to somebody who really listening and thinking like, whoa, I'm there. What do you mean by feel to heal? What can I do to feel or to what I need to do to start?
So my biggest advice is to be patient with yourself and to truly find that kindness and patience and love for yourself before you try to navigate any kind of journey, right? Like it took me years to even want to look at myself in the mirror, because just like you said, it's the shame, it's the fear, it's the condemnation, it's all the things that the names I was called, it's all of the all the things that the labels that were put on me by the cult, by the leader, by the associations, whatever it was. And we carry those things with us. So my best advice is to be patient with yourself and to allow yourself the time and the space to heal, and to find find that sacredness of intentionality of you're worth it, right? Because if you don't find your own worth, nobody will give it to you. Nobody will be able to tell you anything to make you feel worth it. You have to find that within yourself. And patience and kindness towards yourself will be the first step in order to find that worth. And then that worth will help you propel to find the resources and the tools in order to heal.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for this advice. There's another phrase that I really resonate from your form that you said, each thought and emotion and moment is a choice. Because I'm teaching this to my kids all the time. And then you said, we get to choose how to spend our energy. I choose to make or stay focused and positive and keep growing, learning, and expanding in order to help others. Because even recently I was talking to my oldest one, and something happened in school, and it happened before with her studying, and it's almost like, man, it's like her Achilles heel, and it happens last time and she couldn't overcome it, and this year it happens again, and everything was wonderful, and then she's just got so scared, and she said, Mom, this pebble can become the avalanche. And I sit her down and I said to her, it's up to you. So we can do this and that to keep it at the pebble level. And it was so cool. Oh, pebble level. And it was so cool by talking to her. And she's like, well, that what happened last time. I already have experience that I cannot do this. I'm like, no, last year you were younger, you were in this place, and now you're growing and you're different, and today is today. And she's like,
Yeah.
well, but if I cannot do this today, then tomorrow, or then it's gonna be. I'm like, whoa, there's no last year and there's no next year, it's right now. What can we do? How can you look at it from different perspective rather than look at the problem? So, and
Yeah.
that's kind of thinking, feeling positive. And you were talking about this too a little bit earlier in your form about the gratitude, how we don't even realize that breath is a gift. So when we actually concentrate on the fact how much we have and be grateful and be positive, and stuff just happening, it's part of life. And I said to her, sooner you accepted that you are not perfect and there's something, and love that part of imperfection, sooner you're gonna see this as just a pebble on the road.
We're perfectly imperfect, right? And that's okay. That's awesome, right? And the culture we live in, that perfectionism sneaks into us, in such a sneaky way. But I love what you shared about, being in the moment, being in the present, because you cannot change the past and you cannot predict or the fearing the future is wasted energy. So the only thing we have control of is this exact moment, this exact thought, this exact word, right? I talk a lot in my coaching about being able to being a navigator of our own thoughts and words and feelings because of the power behind them, right? Negativity perpetuates negativity, same as positivity perpetuates positivity. So being an artisan and being able to control our thoughts and our words is huge in understanding how important our energy is and understanding that it's limited. So we want to make the most of it and let it count the most. And the best way to do that is to understand that we do have control of every thought, every emotion, and it's a choice. We get to either choose to give into it and allow it to consume us, or we can choose to let it roll off us, or we can choose to sit with it for a moment and then let it go. Like, these are choices, and that's something that I had to learn because life was happening to me and not me doing life, right? Life was just happening to me and I was just taking it and taking it and taking it. And eventually I had to take control and say, no, life's going to happen, but I get to be a participant in my own life. So
That's
yeah.
cool. Honestly, one time I don't remember. It was just recently, a few years. Oh, every time I count myself when I say recently, a few years ago, it's kind of like oxymoron. So like a few years ago, this has happened to me when I like, although I'm so positive and like, oh, like I had a breakthrough. Okay, I was listening this meditation because honestly, being a mom, I always on the go, so my brain is always go, and I noticed that my thoughts actually can put me into depression. It started with the small things, very negative, but I just too tired, too busy to pay attention to it, and it started over and over about something this, and it's literally would put me into depression later on because I already start getting resentment and all this stuff. And I literally don't even notice how it happens when it's like really bad. I'm like, whoa, I'm crying, I'm sad. What happened? And I have to dig, like, but by the grace of God, I'm very self-aware, and I have to dig like what happened to me. But it's already span of the days and sometimes even weeks. And by the way, I had postpartum depression, so I'm not talking about the like clinical depressions and like mental health challenges and stuff. I'm talking everyday life,
Right.
because we are, but like you said, we have a choice, give it to negative or positive, and that's gonna be the consequences of that choice and decision. And I knew that, but I actually sighed doing it to myself, and I did what happened, and I'm like, whoa, it started with that small little thing.
Yeah.
And then I was
And
like,
it's a snowball effect, right? Like,
yeah,
and
exactly
it
how
gains speed as you feed it,
it's
that
terrible.
negativity, it gains speed.
And then you have no control over it. That's the terrible part, that it affected me physically, my relationship with people around me. It was like really hard. But then I was listening to this meditation. So I'm like, oh, I gotta calm down, I gotta be more calm. And there was phrase that just like literally blew me away. I'm like, why I never think like that? So this woman says, um, this sometimes the thought appears so powerful and convincing that it appear to be true. And I'm like, man, I give in those thoughts that like 100%, like not 100, sometimes 99%. Like, so as the people say, 99% of the fears doesn't come true, and 99% of what coming through your head or through my head, maybe your head is really wonderful and say only good things to you, but my head like have so much nonsense. And doesn't matter, honestly, guys, like we will talk about this little bit too, about the pain. And you don't have to be raped and abused to actually have a trauma. Neglect is a trauma. One bad negative word that affected you negatively and stuck to you, so your body gonna perceive like trauma.
Pain is
And
pain.
yes, pain is pain. And then it's so interesting that oh, I lost my train of thoughts because like I was thinking about trauma. I actually want to add this cool. That's why I kind of lost my train of thoughts, because I was thinking about this neuroscientist, like she was saying about the trauma. Actually, if something happened to you, even without physical abuse, something like neglect, um will record in your brain same as you broke your arm. So literally physical pain, being raped, abused, beaten, will record as a trauma. But if somebody said really bad words to you, or um labeling you, or something happening like that, your brain's still gonna record that as like almost like a physical pain.
Right.
That's why never judge the book by its cover. Always be gracious to people around you, because really you don't know. And
They're struggling. You don't know what their struggles are. Yeah. I say that a lot. Pain is pain, and your worst pain is your worst pain. So if that is divorced parents, or if that is bullying, or if that is abandonment, whatever your worst pain is, then that's your worst, that's where you resonate. That's what you have to work with. And that is just as bad as being raped or molested, or the things that we've shared about today, right? Like that, the pain is so relative. And yes, I've taken a lot of those classes where it talks about the neuro transmission, and how those synapses are created. And they can't differentiate between this trauma or this trauma or this trauma. It's all trauma. It's all pain. It's all negative, and it all creates the same kind of damage. in your nervous system. And that's what it really comes down to, is that damage in the nervous system, and how we have to heal that in order to become happier, healthier people.
That's awesome. Actually, while you were talking, previously I write it down. We perfectly imperfect. I actually like this for the name of the episode. What do you think? I
I
like
love
that.
it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So, my friend, where can people go to find out more about you and your work?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, I'm a certified life and health coach now, and also a spiritual mentor. And so you can find out everything about me on my website. You can schedule with me. You can ask questions. You can also look at my other podcast, and also the 2 books that I have coming out at the end of the year. Just like Lena, I'm part of the Breaking Silence, the Voices of Survivors anthology, which I'm really excited is coming out in December. And I'm also part of the Global Resilience Project that's coming out in November. So I'm really excited to be co-authoring for both of those. And you'll be able to read my story there. But visit my website, which is PIC Wellness. It's PIC Wellness, LLC.com. And you can also look on Facebook and Instagram with my name, Martha Kartaoui, and follow me there to see more tips and tricks about how to be a healthier, happier person.
That is awesome. And honestly, when your book's gonna come out, I'm gonna plug them to the show as well, so people can get it from there too. I do believe you guys, you need to read the story. You need to be encouraged, inspired, and have hope, because honestly, like we already said previously, I saw myself. I was at the conference and I saw this woman was presenting on stage, and she was talking about the childhood abuse, and I was thinking, if she can say that, I can say that. If she healed and saying that she was actually bought the house to her abuser, and she took care of him and blessed him, and then he like it was like he bought his soul. She said, I thought I'm gonna be buying his house, but she bought his soul. So if you guys actually want to hear that story, it's amazing as well. It's by Joyce Myers. And that's what actually helped me to think, like to have an open mind that yes, I went through trauma just like her, and yes, I can be healed just like her. So I hope you heard the story of Martha today and thinking like, you know what? That's good that she said all this openly and publicly, because now I have, or I know red flags, or I can look for it and be more aware what's going on with people around me. And the second, well, wow, if this is you right now and you heard her story and thinking, oh my goodness, she's amazing, she's beautiful, and she's kind, and she is doing this for the world and looks like she's healed, and she's happy, she's literally shining with the goodness after everything she went through. That means it is possible for me. I want you to think that it's possible for you. And literally, maybe it's gonna take some time. Maybe you're still in really deep mess right now. There's people who will help you. You just need to take that first step. You need to reach out. You need to share. You need to ask. You need to speak up, or you have to run away, or you have to escape. That's what happened to us. We have to escape to
You
actually
have
be
to make
free.
those choices. You have to
Yes.
choose better. Like you have to
Yes.
choose. And sometimes that choice is very, very difficult. Like you said, for me to escape or for you to escape or any of those things. But this all paid off, right? Neither one of us would have the lives that we have or
Absolutely.
the opportunity to heal if we didn't make those big, hard choices. And so, yes, I'm here to second everything that you just said. You are not alone. You are not alone. First of all, God's with you. God is for you, and we are here. There is somebody that will hold you, that will hold that space for you. And, and if you don't know then any of those people, then look me up on social media. I will be that person for you. Or look up Lena. She will be that person for you. Like, yeah, that lonely feeling of nobody will understand me because of my trauma or my pain or all of my past. I know how isolating that is, and I want to be here to break down that barrier. So thank you.
Thank you so much, my friend. Yes, absolutely. We both open and willing. And before I let you go, Marta, I would like to ask you my signature question. What does love and to be loved means to you?
Oh, wow. Okay. Um, love and to be loved is the most sacred and beautiful thing that we have in life. And for me, I've had the opportunity to have love and to be loved. But for me, love is God. I come from love and I come from God. So love is God, and I will go back to God, and which means I will return to love. And so for me, love and be loved is God. So thank you for sharing.
That's beautiful. Is there any final thoughts, Marta?
Wow, this has been an amazing experience. And thank you so much for sharing your platform with me and allowing me to tell my story. And I just pray that it reaches the people that it needs to reach in order to inspire them and to encourage them and for them to feel less lonely. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Well, you were amazing guest, and I knew that even from beginning. So thank you so much, Marta, for being our guest. You provide so much insight, and we really appreciate you sharing with us today. And our special guest is Marta Kartaoui. And
Kartaoui.
oh, I practice and say I gonna
It's okay.
with my
It's
Russian
okay.
accent I will screw up. So I
No
apologize.
problem.
So yes, and again, guys, don't hesitate to reach out to Marta, and I will post the links, like everything that we talk about it, on this episode in the show notes. And stay tuned for another edition, Love and Beloved, and we will meet with Trent Brock, who, as well, is part of our project, and he's written for Breaking the Silence, Voices of Survivor collections. I don't know what's going on with me today, but yes, thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Marta. So grateful for you and your time.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.